So you guys know who we are. So I'm Jim, Ronnie. I'm a filmmaker, ocean explorer. Ronnie?
I'm a engineer. We run an engineering company and we do lots of cool stuff with deep sea engineering.
I'm Angelique and I'm an Ocean Youth Ambassador.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Isla and I'm also an Ocean Youth Ambassador.
Oh, great. Can I be an ocean ambassador?
I'm Axel and I am also an Ocean Youth Ambassador.
All right.
And so just to explain what that sort of is, Ocean Youth is an organisation that is all about empowering young people to be able to make change in the ocean, blue, green spaces.
That's so critical.
Yeah.
I mean, you and your peers of your generation, you're going to be inhabiting a world that the people of my generation kind of bobbled and messed up. And it's up to you guys to be the guardians and, you know, and try to make it better. I mean, we're all on the same team here.
Yeah.
Today, here, we're all on the same team. So do you have some questions for us?
Yes, so it's my understanding that when you were around our age, you were greatly interested in ocean exploration and navigation, as well as building models.
Yeah.
At that point, did you ever see yourself ending up where you are now?
I think that's kind of almost impossible, you know, to know where you're gonna wind up. The things that consume you, that you're curious about when you're 16. Certainly in my case, it drove me to sitting here today with a sub behind us that we built and operated, and a lot of other deep ocean stuff that I've done. You guys know who Jacques Cousteau is, obviously. A lot of kids your age don't. You know, really famous early explorer, inventor of scuba system, and so on. He was my inspiration at that time. You know, for the first time, all this incredible imagery was coming back out of the undersea world. He called it the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. That had a big influence on me. Also, for me, it was an interesting intersection because I was also a super avid fan of science fiction. Science fiction, you go to other worlds to meet aliens. And I just made this click, this cognitive connection. I don't have to go to another planet to meet aliens. I can meet them right here. You know, there's so many wonders down there. So I was right about that. All the amazing stuff already exists. Not all of it, obviously. We might encounter anything out there in the universe. But I couldn't wait around to become an astronaut and for them to figure out interplanetary travel. I figured I can learn how to scuba dive and I can see all the amazing wonders of nature right here on Earth. But I was a fanatic. It just made sense to me. I have to learn how to do this. And you know, it seems to me that you guys are feeling that same call, right? That same call of the ocean, of the wonder of the natural world. But you have an added burden. We didn't have to worry about preserving it back then, you know, because we hadn't injured it enough as a human species. So now your job is not only to explore, but to conserve and protect, right? So you have to be our warriors. You have to be our ocean warriors and our ocean guardians. And I believe, you know, when I look at your faces and your enthusiasm, I believe that you're going to do it. You'll figure it out. It's a hard problem, as we know, right?
So more people have been to space than have been down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest place on Earth, obviously.
Yeah.
How humbling was it to be only the third person down there?
Well, it's certainly humbling anytime you kind of get to bear witness to the vastness of the ocean, the depth of the ocean, you know, how big it is. You know, we think of the ocean as being, you know, 2/3 of the Earth's surface, but everybody forgets that it's also a volume that goes down for miles. And in the case of the Challenger Deep, it goes down 7 miles. So you really feel the enormity of all that water above you and that whole water column. And then life, obviously, is throughout that whole water column, more up toward the surface than down deep. But we need to understand all the parts of the ocean. So we use sound to map the ocean bottom, but if you want to see what's there, you have to go down there. So you got to go with a vehicle, you can go with a sub and be in it. And yeah, you not only feel the sense of scale, but you also feel the sense of time. Because you're looking at something that's so primordial. It probably hasn't, the process down there at one of those subduction zones where part of the Earth's crust is going under another part, right? The Australia plate and the Pacific plate. you get this sense that this party's been going on down here for billions of years, 4 billion years, you know. And so you realize how minuscule you are, not only in physical scale, but in temporal scale. Like, things have been going on down here, and they're still going to be going on down here billions of years from now. And you feel this kind of sense of wow, am I ever privileged to get to see something really cool that other people haven't seen before? And then that translates to, you know, as a filmmaker, well, I got to bring this back. I got to tell this story, right? So I got to photograph it, I got to video it, you know, and then I have to come back and tell the story, which is what we're doing right now, right? That's where it all starts. That's where exploration starts.
When you were diving down, were you afraid of diving, especially since it's deeper than Everest? So were you afraid?
I think the appropriate place for fear, and I'm sure Ronnie would agree, is when you're doing the engineering. I know actually you're interested in engineering, you know, so we had years to figure out how to build a sphere that would keep us safe from the pressure. And we put all our thought, you know, the right place for paranoia is during the engineering. Because, you know, I mean, we set ourselves this challenge to go to the deepest place on the planet, but obviously, you know, we're talking, what, couple 200 or 300 kg difference.
Wow.
And we had to calculate all that because we had to ballast the sub so that we could achieve neutral buoyancy. And Ronnie did calculations that were incredibly complex before every dive based on how deep we knew we were going. Well, the beauty of going to the Challenger Deep is you can't go any deeper anywhere in the world. So if you're designing for that, you know, you're on the bottom. Unless you brought a big shovel, you're not going any deeper. That's the highest pressure that you can experience in the world's ocean. So we know pressure is our enemy. And so it's a 7-year process to design and build this sub. And so you bring all your paranoia to the table. What can go wrong, right? So what are the things that can go wrong? Right?
Yeah, it's quite an engineering feat. I think one of the advantages is that we knew the actual depth. You know, we could not exceed 11 kilometres.
Right.
So we had a specific target. We had to survive at least that pressure. We looked at various standards, and it was the Australian standards that were being the most recently updated at the time, that allowed us to use modern technology like finite element analysis to do the study. So it was important that we do our own analysis of a lot of the different materials. We had to find materials that were available, affordable, and could be forged into the particular shapes, and they be constructed so they could be put together, either welded, pressed, or whatever, to make the sphere. And that was the main engineering
flotation
feat.
Too. Ronnie had to create a new foam too, because the sub, if you drop a steel sphere in the water, clunk, right? You're not coming back up. So a lot of the sub is flotation to get us back to the surface. And the flotation materials that were commercially available would crush at that pressure, or they would crack, they'd lose rigidity, and they'd lose buoyancy. So Ronnie had to create a new material for flotation that never existed before as well. But your question was about fear, so it's really psychological, right? And I think that when you've spent 7 years thinking about everything that can go wrong, you really enter the sub and you see that hatch closing, right? And you know you're bolted in and you're going for that ride with a sense of excitement. Like, I'm gonna get to go see something nobody's ever seen before. And that's exciting.
How did you incorporate the ocean advocation and all of that in your movies, and how did it inspire your design?
Well, look, there's a certain point where I was making films. They were commercially successful. And I got to making The Abyss, and I'd always been fascinated by the deep ocean technology. To me, I always thought of it almost like inner space, and we're doing these missions to inner space, and we're sending robots and so on. When they discovered the Titanic, they used a small robotic vehicle called Jason Jr. to explore around the wreck, and I got super excited about that. When I was making the movie The Abyss, I went and met all the people, like Robert Ballard, who found the wreck. He was at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and I met people that built those robotics, ROVs. And then I incorporated that into the storytelling of The Abyss. And when I finished that movie, then I did Terminator 2. But then after that, I was trying to think of something to do next. And I thought, well, why don't we go do it for real? Why don't we really make cameras and robots and stuff and go down to what I imagined like the deepest place in the world. I mean, I knew it wasn't the deepest place, but it felt like the deepest place I could ever get to, which was the Titanic wreck, 12,000, 500 feet, almost 4,000 meters. Let's make a movie about Titanic and let's incorporate all that stuff. So, but I wasn't dealing with it from a conservation or a stewardship standpoint yet. It was still just the excitement of the technology and the exploration, the archaeology, and telling this kind of epic story. And then, years after that, we started doing these deep ocean expeditions, and Ronnie and I, started doing that in the 2000s, and total of 8 expeditions, including this one. And you start to the thing that fascinates you and that you go to explore, eventually you want to fight for it, you want to defend it. And as fishing systems get more and more efficient, they're able to not only take out the fish that are up in the photic zone where the light is, but they're going deeper and they're starting to scrub out all the life out of the twilight zone. And that's really super threatening to us as a species. And so that's an area that you guys can probably raise some awareness around. Because if you start destroying that really interconnected food web that goes down, 800 or 1,000 meters, everything starts to collapse. The manufacture of oxygen. Everybody talks about the rainforest being the lungs of the planet. It produces about a third of our oxygen. The rest is done by marine organisms, phytoplankton, right? So we got to protect all that, and we got to keep that surviving. So to really answer your question, you look at a movie like Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Now I'm coming full circle. I'm using all the stuff I learned about how to make action movies and use visual effects and all that, and saying, isn't the ocean beautiful? Isn't it worth fighting for?
So you've both done a lot of work in ocean exploration. What do you see the future of that looking like?
Ronnie, you've been building some interesting vehicles in the last few years.
I sort of came into this field basically by following opportunities. Since DEEPSEA Challenger, we've built a hadal depth profiler for the University of Hawaii. We're currently doing research with Southern Cross University on saving the coral reefs through coral bleaching by geoengineering. I'm hoping that I'm sort of a mentor to the people that I'm employing and the people that listen to people like Jim and myself. We excite that desire to sort of look after our planet and do something about it. So I think it's really important that if there are opportunities, you take them to do that leadership.
I mean, we're sitting here because Ronnie and I wanted to get into a sub. We're not sitting here today because we built a cool robot. I love robotics, don't get me wrong, but I think that sitting at the top of that at that pinnacle are the human-occupied vehicles where we get to go bear witness. Ronnie and I and the other people who dive in subs, and someday you guys hopefully will be doing that as well. We are the avatars that go ahead, the tip of the spear for the other 8 billion people on the planet that don't get into a submersible, right? And so, we're the storytellers in a way, and we're the ones that capture the interest, and we're passing the baton on to you guys and other explorers. We can't ever lose, no matter how mission oriented we get, we can't lose that sense of wonder, that sense of awe, that nature is smarter than we are. And we turn our back on nature at our peril, because we're part of nature. We're biological organisms, right? So that's your mission statement.